My whole life I've been really fascinated with making things. I can still remember the first house that I designed as a kid. My name is Michael McNamara. I am an architectural designer, designer-builder. I went to the University of Oregon. I'm talking about mid-60s, time of the Vietnam War, time of the military draft in the US. And it was a very contentious time on many levels. I had decided that I had no intention of going to Vietnam or joining the military or cooperating in any way, basically. And I was faced with a decision, do I want to stay in that country and keep, trying to deal with that and make change, or did I want to just leave and hopefully live in a smaller community, make positive contributions to that? And I did get drafted and moved to Vancouver. And that was 1969. It was the back to the land days. There was a sort of ethos of urban living was headed in the wrong direction. And really what you wanted to do was, build your own home, live with the seasons, all of that stuff. So while living in Vancouver, I was talking to my two friends. They had just got back from Hornby, and they were talking about this incredible place where there was this beautiful, beautiful island. And there was a guy here who was building houses and buildings out of driftwood. It sounded like some kind of paradise to me. It sounded like a dream. And it turned out to be exactly what we've been looking for. I always wanted to have a more direct emotional connection with what I was doing. And I meant actually physically getting involved in the building. It seemed like a really distant possibility, but in coming to Hornby, of course, it was kind of the only way. If you wanted to do something, you had to kind of do it yourself. And fortunately, there was a whole community of young people who were doing that. I think it was about 150 or 200 people when I came in 1971. Nobody had any money, right? If you had something to build, you would beachcomb, get stuff from the woods, barter and trade, all that kind of good stuff. And that's sort of how things happened in those days. I've always been interested in the nuts and bolts of building, the beauty of engineering, the tectonics of how things go together in a way that has a necessary discipline, but can be done in a way that's harmonic. How is it that one space is fascinating and fulfilling and exciting and draws you in and then, blows your mind and all this kind of stuff, and other places are just like, ick. Why do I have to be here? It's this pursuit. Like, what are the intrinsic energies in this place? We do actually have the perceptual ability to sense some really subtle things. And I think for designers, it's important to develop those senses as much as possible and pay attention and try to bring that back into the more practical sphere. You can shape spaces to really be not only useful, but to really sing. Something that Arthur Erickson said one day, he said he always wants to make sure as he's starting a design to be completely empty. It's really a powerful piece of advice. And sometimes, it's just driven me crazy. Am I empty? I'm not empty. I'm thinking about this and that and the other thing. But it actually is necessary. It's one of those first steps to maintain the harmony, for there to be a feeling of an overall peacefulness or fitting in. But it all comes back to where you are. Where do you want to be looking? Where's the light coming from? How open are you to the outside? Do you want to flow out? Do you want to stay in? How do we feel safe? How do we feel free? Every design is completely different. It's never the same. I mean, no two places are the same. It's like improvising. You kind of need a strategy. And for me, the strategy is go to the site, get as much information as you can. And I'll do a lot of busy work. What's growing there? What are the orientations? What's the slope of the land? And what's the geology and the geography and the da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I like to do this busy work. That's one of the parts I really like. It's sort of therapeutic. It's, in a way, it's mindless. So when and if I do get an idea, which eventually will come, right? When I get empty enough, the pieces will start falling into place. If I've done all this groundwork, they've got a place to land. And that's where the work begins. It's all in service of a beautiful, pleasant, poetic space that is fun and practical. If I get it right, there's magic. And that will stay there. And the older I get, the less interested I am in not doing that. Not finding that sweet spot. That's always the little bit of delight that anybody's going to feel when they come in. When I got to the Pacific Northwest, I just sort of had this breath of, I'm home, this is it, right? Just the air, the water, the mountains, the forest, the whole thing. So I like to go back and touch that first impression. If I need a break, if I need to get clear, I'll just step into the forest. And to get down into that level really helps me to relax, to open my spirit up a little bit, to be able to calm some of the constant chatter. You've got to do this and you've got to do that. And have you done this yet? No, you haven't? All that stuff. The forest is always a touchstone for me because it's all happening there. If you're quiet, there's this sound that you can tune into. That's all these creatures, right? It's totally populated with these huge plants and tiny creatures. And then, of course, there's the ravens who are saying, what, you again? What are you doing here? There's no escaping the fact that you are in this world. Virtually all my work is in a rural environment. So you really are in it. You're fully participating. You're just in the midst of nature, which is absolutely brilliant. And the materials we use here are almost entirely direct, natural. Nature's always been a huge influence, and it's the inspiration. Our idea of perfection, our idea of beauty, of harmony, all comes from nature. That's all we've got. That's what we're part of. There's no actual separation. We are it. It is us. We live in nature, even if you're in the middle of the city. I mean, we're all here. With architecture, it's not just a designer. There's a whole team. It's very real what you're doing because you're spending a lot of money, right? And in some cases, a whole lot of money. And decisions are being made all the time. So I'm always trying to create that spirit of collaboration. For real. One really important aspect of being here is participating in a community. Because it's a tiny community, you have to be self-reliant. So the social infrastructure isn't just going to be there. All your recreational facilities and gathering places and performance venues and whatnot aren't just going to be there. You have to create them. That's been one of the really fascinating and fun and rewarding parts of living here. How spontaneously the community can acknowledge a need and then work toward satisfying that need. And find out that you can actually do that. And in fact, if you don't do it, you continue having the need. So many of all of the community social infrastructure has been created mostly by volunteers. It's like creating something out of thin air almost. It was a great experience. In the process of building something, part of philosophy of Lloyd's was that observing something or working with something, you leave an imprint. The action, the energy, the intention, the emotion actually goes into that process. With architecture, all of that stays with the structure. And so there's a responsibility, for designers and builders and people that are actually creating environments to create them with full knowledge of that and intention. And what we're doing here is a very, in a way, almost sacred act because it's going to live on. Whatever we're putting in there. That's just participation, right?